Hey, what's happening? I'm Kevin Carroll, author, speaker, instigator of inspiration, and one of the things that I'm thrilled to be sharing with you all is the power of play and its purpose in raising your game as a leader. So on this show, we're going to talk about play, passion, purpose, intention, and how you show up as a leader, and the most important thing, how you show up for your team and how you raise their game. So stay tuned, enjoy our conversation. It'll be robust, it'll be far-reaching, and it's going to definitely be playful.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, on a Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm the founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything. You can find out more by going to FullMontyLeadership.com. So let me ask you, in what ways do you need to up-level your leadership? Well, when it comes to raising performance, have you considered the importance of play for yourself and for your team? Well, you might be in for a bit of a surprise, so stay tuned. Remember, you can now chat about this episode or any past episodes inside our Facebook and LinkedIn groups by going and looking for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into podcasts. And we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get over there, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And remember, we always need your help in staying relevant. That's why we ask you to do that. Also, you can catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday. Also, look for us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. Listen to us on Google Home or Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron podcast. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in, because along with our outstanding guest today, I have a dear friend with us who is going to co-host with me today. My co-host for this episode is Joel Bauer. Joel is a master of mindset for the amazing Seller e-conference training company, and that's also helped to others to build million-dollar brands from scratch. He also is the founder of Don't Die of Dumb. That's showing people how their own health get command of it and how to take the massive advancements in medical science. You ready for this? Let's get back to the show. As a leader, whether you're a CEO or someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneur, leader in any capacity, you know that there has been a shift from the old command and control, head down style leadership to something very different. So different that most of it, as of right now, remains a bit undefined. What do we know about leadership? Well, we know that it has changed, and we know that what did work doesn't work, whether that's in the leadership or whether it's in employee engagement and loyalty. So have you stopped and considered the importance of play? Not just for your own productivity, but for the physical, mental, emotional performance of every human that works with you. The truth is, whether you want to admit it or not, we are all dragging our past around with us. Some have buried it under that and not really. It's going to weigh them down. Others have used it to springboard them into higher things. So how can we leverage our history into high performance while using play? Let's find out together. Our guest on this episode, this epic guest, is Kevin Carroll. He's an author, human performance coach, creative catalyst. Kevin brings a playful curiosity and avid intellect a keen understanding of the human nature, a lifelong love of competition, and all of this into all of his endeavors. He is a humanist, potential and possibilities. He sees it everywhere. He solves issues and challenges in surprising and unexpected ways. Kevin is the author of 3 highly successful books published by ESPN, Disney Press, and McGraw-Hill. He has helped turn creative ideas into reality for organizations such as Nike, Starbucks, Adidas, Walt Disney, Target, Procter & Gamble, Under Armour, Mattel, and a whole bunch of others, including the National Basketball Association. He went from being a high school athletic trainer to a college athletic trainer and to a trainer of the Philadelphia 76ers, which, as I told Kevin once before, I have no idea what it is. And he did it in just 5 years. Oh, and did I mention, on top of all that, he speaks 5 languages. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome author of 3 highly successful books, including Rules of the Red Rubber Ball. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Kevin, the Katalyst, Carroll!
Well done, Doug. I gotta tell you, I don't know. All I need to do is take a bow after that intro. I don't have to do anything else.
That's it, mate. You're done. We're done. End of the show right there.
Yeah, that was good. Very concise.
There it was, right? The mic drop, and we're good.
So I know the answer to this question because you and I had a great conversation, several conversations before. But one of the things I like to start the show out with is to ask, who is somebody who has inspired you, who has been a major influence in your life that we, as in the public, would probably not know or not suspect? And I know that it's your CEO. So please tell us about that person, because I think that's a magnificent and beautiful story.
So it's wonderful timing on your part too, to bring that up, because we've got a big holiday coming up here in the States, Martin Luther King Day.
Absolutely.
And so it always makes me think about the impact of one individual that can have on a life.
Yes.
And Miss Lane was that kind of individual, my human catalyst. She made such a big difference in my life by meeting her at the age of 9-ish and having a 46-year-long friendship with her. For the audience, I'm well preserved. I tell people, I'm the Black Benjamin Button. So there you go. You can.
This guy,
well preserved.
Black don't crack.
That's it.
This guy's got a painting in his attic, and it's
yes.
getting really old.
Yes, absolutely. The painting is really worn out, but I'm not. So imagine an unexpected connection to someone because of a scuffle at a playground, and a peace offering of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich turns into a 46-year-long amazing relationship and partnership with someone who would end up being your most important individual in your life. That's Miss Lane. Miss Lane was my CEO. I love that term, and I bestowed that to her.
Yeah.
Chief Encouragement Officer of my dreams, my hopes, my aspirations, by the way that she basically approached me. She welcomed me and gave me this sense of belonging when I didn't have it. So I didn't have a mom. I didn't have a dad. They were addicts. They abandoned me and my 2 brothers. My grandparents were raising us as best they could. And enter Miss Lane. And when you talk about someone having an impact on your journey and someone really being that catalytic energy, she was that for me. And if it's not for her entering my life at that very, very important moment, that formative years, I know I'm not reveling in the success and the different creative capers that I've done in my journey, because she was the most important person in my life.
I remember you telling me that story and thinking how powerful that is to have somebody, and you and I had talked about before that it's interesting. And again, in the context of what you were saying before, because I was 10 years old when I walked in the living room and saw my mom crying and I didn't know why. And I said, "Why are you crying, Mom?" And she pointed at the TV set and she said, "He's dead." And I was like, "Who?" I didn't recognize the guy. He wasn't a soccer player. He wasn't TV star or movie star. And I just paid attention and I heard, I have a dream.
Hmm.
And my mom, a poor Jewish woman on what is literally the other side of the world for a kid, right, is crying because a Christian minister has died. And I was like, wow. I mean, that was like, and it's so interesting because I've always said that many of my most influential people are people I didn't meet. I never met Martin Luther King. I never met Khalil Gibran, but those people have been profoundly impactful in my life. What about you, Joel? Was there somebody for you with that? Was there somebody who entered into your life at an early age?
Yeah, I mean, there was my stepdad. When he entered my life, I didn't know that a man could be that sweet. Like, I didn't know that he could just carry his heart with him. Not that he wasn't masculine, not that he wouldn't like make it happen if he had to, but it just everybody loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And that forever changed my life. And like, it set a path for me that like, I masculine doesn't just have to be hard. It doesn't have to just firm and punching everybody, it sits in a different way. And I think like, really, if I looked at how that extends, that's why you and I are friends. It's like why you and I connect is that heart portion. It's not that we want to go accomplish and conquer this world and make some amazing things happen and bring impact, but we also want to do it where we love what we're doing. We're enjoying the people around us. And so, yeah, what I love is like so many people want to make it complex. Like as I hear you guys' stories, these are simple moments. Simple moments are what change things. We look for complexity as if we're going to find some magical answer. And here you guys like are changing the world because of a single moment that was so simple, and everybody has those.
But it's interesting that it's, for me at least, and I think you would agree, Kev, it's a moment of heart. It's a moment of heart. So Miss Lane approaching you, when she could have gone the other way, she could have been harsh with you. It's a moment of heart of my mom crying. It's a moment of heart of you having a stepdad who, instead of being a macho guy, is open with his heart. It's these moments of heart that connect us all. Yeah. And I know that that's really important to your philosophy, Kev, along with purposeful play. Talk to us a little bit about that connection.
I love the fact that you brought up the idea of heart, but I even go that next step, belonging.
Yes.
That we all want to have a sense of belonging, whether it's professionally or personally. We need to have a place we feel connected. Miss Lane created that for me. And then I started to look for that, right? So I started to having that awareness of what that is. Oh, let me find it somewhere else. And I found it at a playground. And that playground was amazing for me because, we played sports and played in a very traditional manner, but I had higher thinking about it. I literally was thinking about it. How can I extend the play? How can I extend the day with you all? Because I'm connected to you all. And so the purpose of play was not what everyone else had. And I started that very early at 9 or 10 years old, because play was connection. Play was community. Play was belonging. Play was finding like-minded people. And so the purpose of play was very different for me. It was never first place, never medals, never trophies. It was not that for me. Yes, I was a good athlete. Yes, I had a high athletic IQ. But Dub, honestly, and Joel, it never was about that. It was like, how can I keep you engaged longer so we can stay connected more? And that was the big thing that I was doing. So play with purpose is about that, right? Is we're finding a way to enjoy our time together, to elevate something else, innovation, creativity, problem solving, abstract thinking, deliver the unexpected, imagination, wonder, magic, whatever you want to call it. But we can find a way to do that together by hearkening back to something we all have in common: play. Everybody has a play history. So when you start with what we know together, you can build from there, right? We have more in common than uncommon. So let's start with something very, very primal, our play history.
You brought up the belonging part. And as I think about that, like there's almost this contrast where if you're in corporate, if you're an executive, play and belonging, those are soft words. Yes. But how can we really utilize this and bring into the businesses to change not only our outcomes, but also the lives of people involved? Like, I mean, it seems so crucial to do.
And I think it's easy to do that, Joel, when we start to spend more time looking at the science behind it.
Yeah.
There's science behind it. There's it's a veritable plethora. I love using that. Yes. So there's so much available. And so I think being more clever and imaginative in the way you're delivering the message around play and finding out what you need to know as a leader. So if I'm meeting you as a leader and I know here are my challenges, my opportunities, the things that I'm looking at for my team, I can actually shape the research for you and deliver that to you to show you why play is serious business. And we need to be bringing play to the team on a regular basis. We use so many sports metaphors in business, but yet we don't play.
So play is really important. So, and again, I want to come back to what Joel was just saying there about bringing play. Because, I mean, I think that everybody, like you said, there's a lot of metaphor of sport. And people think, oh, okay, so what is this then? Do we build a baseball team for the company or whatever it is? And yeah, that's fine. But I don't think that that's really what you're talking about in the truer sense, right? I mean, you're talking about something much bigger. Help us to really grasp this as leaders of organizations. How do we bring play into not just the Saturday once a month thing,
But you could actually build a team, like you just said, a softball team. That could happen. Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm putting together the team specifically so that people actually get to know each other differently. So you're no longer your title when you're playing a game.
Right.
You are more your core, your true self. So we start to learn more. But what's so amazing is when people are in a dugout or when people are queuing for their turn, you don't have a conversation about, so what's that ROI on that latest project that we're working on and how is your accountability? No, we're not bringing any of that up. We're talking about, so what do you think about this? Or how's your son or daughter doing? And all these other life heart things are being shared.
Right.
And I think that's the power of our connecting through play. So you can organize leagues and teams and moments, but designing purpose around it is the key. So right. If I want more communication, if I want more collaboration, if I want better problem solving, we could actually design programs and events and moments to actually instigate that and bring people together that may not work together all the time, put them on teams so that they get to know each other beyond their titles, their functions, their divisions, and I get to know you as a human being. Now we start to form this team from the heart.
Right.
Not from our titles.
Right. So I just want to bring something up here that I think is really important because you're talking about using teams and playing as a way to create an environment of reciprocal vulnerability that allows people to bond. Love that. That's fantastic. However, particularly in North America, very competitive. And so if we've got teams, it becomes us versus them when we start building these crappy silos of marketing versus accounting, and we don't like them. And so that becomes another piece. Walk us through a little bit about breaking down those silos in this process.
And that's the way you would do that. So let's imagine you create a day of corporate recess, and we're going to have a series of games, and we're going to actually bring you together on teams that are cross-functional.
Yes.
So now we bring you from all these different areas, and no longer am I looking at you as like, you have it in for me because you're in marketing and I'm in design and you're in accounting and you're in strat planning. Now we're on the same team and we're not using our titles. What if I actually allow you to rename yourself? What are you bringing to this team today? I'm the energy giver. I'm the positive deviant. I'm the contrarian. So now you've got a new title and you're on a new team, and I'm learning things about these people that I thought had an agenda against me. They were trying to unseat me. They were trying to get me, and they're not that way at all. So when we go back to our typical daily functions within the organization, now I send an email to you. Guess what? You pause. Because I remember Joel was cool that day when we were playing kickball. And I was getting ready to send this like scathing email, but wait, let me pause. Because no, let me reword this, because I know you differently, and I know you don't have it in for me, and maybe you're dealing with something. Maybe something's challenging you. Maybe that's the way the language, the verbiage you were using in that note. So let me check on you as a human being first. So does that make sense, Dove, what I'm proposing?
That makes perfect sense. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that
Yes.
this is, you know, because I think that when they do the baseball team or the, you know, the basketball or whatever team it is,
Yes.
it tends to be in the silo. And it's really important to break down the silos and say, okay, we need a person from accounting, we need a person from marketing, we need a person from strategic planning, we need a person from each of these, and the teams will be made up cross in a way to, because I think that so often that humanization is lost.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, well, then it becomes just another way to do us against them. So
Yes.
yeah, I love that. And I think it's really important. Did you have something you wanted to add there, Joel? You wanted
Yeah,
to
you hit on something really interesting, and I don't hear in this place when people are talking about play or like we're going to add the ping pong table or we're going to, you know, go play a pickup game. You know, there's no intention behind it. They're not like trying to solve. What was really interesting was like, hey, this is the problem we're seeking. So in Dobbs, it might be in the scenario he was breaking down is like we're trying to break the silos. We're trying to open them up so that we can the company as a whole starts working better together. But there's all kinds of those intentions, and that's not what happens. It's like, I heard it was good because Google does it, is kind of the conversation. And then they just throw it in, and it's like, there's no intention behind it.
No, that's
So
exactly
love
what
hearing that.
happens. They have a really cool space there. We should get one of those.
Yeah.
Right. And then what ends up happening? No one goes to play there because they're terrified of being judged.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have enough work, so you've got time to play. Okay, then.
Yeah.
We're going to find out why you have time to play.
We worked with a company that had bought the bean bags and the coffee machine, and they'd done all those things. And the founder was like, "These millennials, they take everything for granted, and you know, we put all that stuff in there, and nobody even uses it." And I said, "Yeah, a couple of questions for you." And he said, "What?" I said, "Do you use it?" He goes,
Exactly.
and he says,
Bing,
"No,
bing, 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 bing.
no." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Next question for you. When you put those things in that room, did you do any survey with anybody there and find out if that was the things they wanted? Because maybe they wanted someone else." "No, well, look, you know, this is my company and I put in there." I go, "Well, number one, you put in shit that they probably don't care about. And number two, second problem is now they can't go in there because they will feel like you're looking at them saying the lazy bums are hanging out in the coffee room."
Exactly.
I said,
Exactly.
If you want to get people to work in there, go working there, put your
Thank
executive
you.
team in there and
Dove.
spend them in there.
That's fire. No, that's fire. That's exactly it. They do what they see. They do what they
Exactly. And I think we forget this. And this, you know, it's interesting because each one of us has a very, what's the word? We'll use interesting. Each one of us has an interesting childhood, right? And we're all different than where we grew up and the environments we grew up in. But we all absolutely know that we are a result of our environment. We all know that I know if I'd have stayed marinating in where I was born, this would be a stinky feature, right? And that I had to evolve from that. But I also know that the other side of that is if you create a milieu, if you create a marinade for people to be in, you can marinate something pretty spectacular, but you got to get in the sauce first yourself.
You got to get up in there, right? And the more courage a leader has to demonstrate the behavior they want to see.
Yes.
That's the secret sauce.
Absolutely.
That's the unlock. That is the unlock. So you have to be a courageous leader. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. And they will model that. But if you are building this really cool space and got this window so you can see who goes down.
Yeah.
Wait, your team knows real fast. I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to be the tall nail. No way.
No.
And they're terrified. And everybody walks by the pool table, the ping pong table, the foosball table, and never touches it.
Yeah.
Never. But if you set it up properly as a leader, and then you actively go down there and practice it and invite people to join you, it will become a robust, amazing energy center.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's also this great place where people, when it first happens, like you're saying, they don't know to use it or not. And people will abuse it at first because the culture is weird. It doesn't accept it yet. It doesn't understand how it's being used. And so, yeah, it's like, yeah, people will go nuts. Like at first, there's some people that'll be like at that ping pong table all the time. As soon as the boss says it's totally okay, shows it's okay because he's doing it, but it'll have to balance out again. And that's how those cultures eventually develop, but people don't give it the time either. No one's
That's the other
time.
thing. Yeah, there's need to rush things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to have a editorial calendar around rolling out play, if you will, rolling out anything that's contrary to your typical culture or how the culture has been.
Can you talk more about the editorial calendar? That just go a little bit more details. Like how do people use that, or what do they do?
So let's look at it from a quarter, 90 days. At the 90-day mark, I'd love for our culture to reflect play in this manner. Okay, so let's do the work back schedule to when we're going to launch the space. But also, what's some of the content that we're sharing, some of the trailers, teasers, promotional things, all these things that are setting up that moment for success. And then here's our schedule of activities and moments and things that we're going to be doing. And the more that you're demonstrating that, the more that you're showing that you've got a plan, now the likelihood of the success at 90 days, when you look at that quarter, it's probably going to tip in the way that you want. But I think that's one of the challenges is we drop those little projects in there and leave them to fend for themselves versus having a plan, an editorial calendar, a rollout plan on how you want that to ultimately look after 90 days.
That's a great question, Joel, and great insight, Kev. One of the things that, of course, you are the catalyst, right? And you tie that to leadership voice and presence and style. It's you and I talked a lot about this idea of a personal brand of who we are as a human, not just as a leader. Talk to us a little bit about that leadership voice, the presence, the style that we bring to something that I think everybody wants to get out of being what everybody else is, but so many people are afraid to step out and be something other than what everybody else is. And I know you've done that magnificently. So walk us through it a bit.
It's interesting how people hide behind their titles, right, in the workplace. It's very convenient. It's, as I like to say, it's a perfect mask. It's a perfect mask to hide behind. But I know you're more than that, right? So your willingness to be a bit more transparent, a bit more vulnerable. And let's look at from a parenting standpoint. As a parent, I don't let my kids know all the dirt I did. I redact, but they have to know I've skinned my knees. They have to know I've made some mistakes. They have to know I've made some bad choices. And then I found a way to rise above those, to make bad turn good, all these things. So as a leader, it's no different. You can't come in there as if I'm fully developed when I got this title. No, I need to know what was challenges, obstacles, different things that you've had to overcome. How did you navigate those things to get to this place? Give me more of a full look at you. Transparency is so important as a leader, and it's so scary. So how you learn to do that, right, in a tactical, strategic, heartfelt way is the unlock, if you will, right? And so I think that work is the work that leaders need to be doing. That's why they're watching your work, Dove, and you, Joel. They're listening to you all because they want to get there, but it's a scary process. It's not easy.
Right. And, I am, as you know, I'm a big fan of vulnerability and talk a lot about the power of vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability. But I think that one of the great misunderstandings of vulnerability is that it is unfiltered. So, and again, it's what Joel was saying about play, right? Oh, there's no play, then we've got something to play on, so now we'll just spend all day playing, right? And so there's this idea that, we're supposed to be leaders and we're supposed to come into this very stiffly, and that's who we got to be. Oh no, we've got to be more vulnerable. Okay, so now I'm going to be on the floor weeping, and all snot and bubbles. No, hold on a second. There is something called discernment. You discern, and it has to have measured reciprocity to it. So
Yes.
there's a discernment and a measured reciprocity. So I tell you something and I pay attention to what gets back. But I, as the leader, got to go first. And I don't sort of just back the truck up. And I think that that's what you're really, am I right in saying that's where you're actually going here, Kev?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So listen, I'm not going to do a full salvo of all my feelings to you, right? And just dump it all on you. No, it's very strategic. It's very tactical, but I also have to give you glimpses.
Yes.
You have to see these moments of who I am beyond my title. And so if I'm dealing with some difficult in my personal life, you sometimes have to not necessarily reveal the full story, but people need to know, hey, I might be a little off.
Right.
I'm dealing with something personal and it may take my energy. And what I need from you is to lift me up and lift the organization up right now as I go through this. People
You've
be like, I
taken
got
that
you.
You've taken that into some pretty big companies.
Yes.
I know you've got a very strong and long relationship with Nike and with Phil and with other huge companies that you've been part of, and you know, whether it's Starbucks or Target or whoever it is. How did they respond to this idea from you around the vulnerability?
You know what I think is so interesting, Dove and Joel, I love this. At first, they're like, who's this guy coming in here talking about this stuff? I'm kind of a big deal, right? And I had to demonstrate it.
Yes.
I had to demonstrate the work, not just myself, but the work with others. And as they started hearing more and more about the effect I was having on people, the work I was doing with others, then they started to lean in and go, hey, could we have a little meetup? Could we have a little conversation? I'm dealing with some difficult, and I think you might be able to help me.
Right.
So now we're having a one-on-one, but they've witnessed what I've done. So there's a trust factor. You didn't have an agenda, Kevin. You weren't up to something. You weren't trying to climb the ladder with your agenda. What you were doing was literally lifting others up. My whole attitude at any place that I've ever gone is, if you shine, I shine.
Yes.
If you shine, I shine. So I'm going to get my shine from you. So I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to help amplify you. I'm going to help you be high performing. And once I started being very intentional about that, then people noticed. I do want to bring up one thing, Dove. You brought up something the other day on one of your LinkedIn moments. Oh my gosh. Have you lost something? Do you know where it went? And I'm like, what does he say? What did he say? Your passion. I'm like, dude, that was so good. That was so good. I did this and do the same thing with leaders. Pay attention to your intention, your passion, your purpose, your intention every day. That's how people gain trust in you. So, Dove, that was so timely that was on yesterday. But that was such a nice segue for me to bring that up.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that, you know, we run all these things about how it's supposed to be. And every time we do that, we lose the humanity. And when we lose the humanity, we don't get the connection, we don't get the loyalty, and we don't get the performance. You know, and I think that oftentimes we running the model on production rather than on relationships. And production naturally happens as a state of relationship versus the other way around.
Joel, you actually brought something up about soft skills, right?
Yeah.
These soft skills. But we know in the 21st century, in 2020 new decade, how are you going to win the day as a leader? It's relationships. We know that to be true. There's so much research out there now, right? So it's an undeniable truth that is not a soft skill anymore.
No.
Right? Collaboration is a social currency now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you hit so many people think it's supposed to look a certain way, like you were bringing up earlier, that expectation of things. And when they look at it, they don't allow to be crappy at something. And whenever you have a new concept, a new idea, a new way of thinking, a new level of vulnerability, a new play that you bring to the work, you aren't going to be good at it. And it really sucked for people who spent their whole life just being the best they could be until they got recognized and kept moving up the ranks. And then now you're suddenly, hey, I want you to do something you suck at again, you know? And they're like, wait, I just got here.
What did we learn when we were run, jump, skip, hop? We were learning mastery. We weren't good at it right away as children, right? Our movements were clumsy and clunky, right? We were learning these things and we were okay gaining a little bit better each day. We have to harken back to that when we're introducing something new within the workforce and recognize that, but also articulate that to the team that I know this might be difficult. I know it might be clunky. I know it might not feel seamless and smooth. It's okay because I know we're going to master this and it's going to raise our game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at like vulnerability, particularly when you're sharing something and you don't usually use it strategically. You're going to stumble on that side where maybe sometimes you share a little bit too much and maybe not enough. And you're like, you think you're sharing and they're like, I don't get it. What's going on?
Yes.
But yeah, you got to stay in there and learn, you know, and that takes time.
Well, the analogy I've used many times is, unlike Kevin, most of us don't speak multiple languages. I always say I speak some English, some Yiddish, and a lot of rubbish personally, but you know, that's personal. But most people don't speak multiple languages. But even if you have a propensity towards language, when you start, you are going to make a dog's breakfast of it. You're going to do it wrong. And most of us don't continue to learn a language because we can't get over that barrier of not getting it right. And the ones who are really good at languages are willing to say the wrong thing in the wrong way, right? And I know because you've got these multiple languages, Kev, but it's a great analogy of exactly what Joel was just talking about, whether it's with play or innovation or vulnerability or whatever it is.
There's a language. It's a language. Learning,
nice.
Right? And as a leader, you're learning your words. You're learning your language. You're learning your ways to articulate and communicate to your team to get the best and most out of them. So it's going to be trial and error. And you have to be, I love that you always say this, Dub, you always talk about being present. Be where your feet are. That's how you're going to learn from your team. So not being transactional with your team, being transformational with them.
Absolutely.
Being very present, looking at their responses to the language and words, and adjust as you need to. So let's think we're on to something here.
Let's take this into an area that I know you're very passionate about, which is creativity and innovation. And talk to us about the tie here, because I think that this is something I think that innovation is one of those words that is thrown around. It's put in people's mission statement. We're the most innovative. And I'm like, do you even know what innovation is? And very often the answer is really no. They don't know what it is. So talk to us about, from your point of view, creativity and innovation.
So the way that I view creativity and innovation is 1 degree of disruption, a subtle shift in a thought, an idea, a process, an approach. That's the breakthrough. That's the aha. So we always think of innovation in this enormous, ginormous way. No, it doesn't have to be that at all. And I always love to paint a picture for everyone when they say, well, I'm not creative. I don't have innovative energy. I was like, yeah, actually you do. Giant refrigerator box. When you were 6, 7, 8 years old, if you discovered a giant refrigerator box, you drag that home and you invite a friend over. Holy crap. Are you kidding me? You're looking at it, both of you, and you're discerning, what could we do with this?
Yes.
And then you start ideating. It could be a bridge. It could be a plane. It could be a fort. It could be a whatever. And then you go, okay, well, how about this? Now you start to negotiate. How about today we do this? And then your friend says, yeah, and what if I go and get this? And then there's negotiation, and then there's compromise, and then there's collaboration. All these things that we're trying to incorporate within our business organization, we all have within us. We have to once again harken back to our youth. when we used our imagination, we used our creative spirit, we were innovative with very little. We don't need head counts, budgets, resources. No, that is not what's stymieing your innovative opportunities and your creative spirit. It's you.
Well, I think when you say it's you, I think the key word here is it's permission.
Boom, boom, boom.
Right. So it's I as the leader, have I created an environment that gives permission so that people can give permission to themselves? Yes. Because even if I give them permission, that's not enough. I built the coffee room, but can I give them permission to give permission to themselves by going in the room and playing? Can I, so I think that's a big thing. And I think that a lot of people who've climbed the ladder of success in whatever form it is, don't see they have that room. They don't see that they're allowed to have that humanity. I'm trying to remember the name of the company. There's a company I read about a couple of years ago, and they started a stand-up comedy night. A stand-up comedy night, and everybody was required to attend one of 4 a year. You had to attend at least one, and you didn't have to be, you didn't have to go up, but if you wanted to go up, you could. And then they had these study nights, which were extra, where people could study to do stand-up and all the rest of it. And it was that same thing. And one of the things that I read about there was that the people who were really good were the dead poker face person who thought they weren't funny. But the environment had given them permission to just stand up there and tell a really bad joke. And that was, and it was called.
It unlocked them. It unlocked them.
I think that's what it was called. I think it was called Bad Joke. Right? So the idea was that, you're bad. Right?
And if it's not, we should actually TM that right now.
But the idea of it was that you're just starting up with the concept of it being bad. Right? So let's just do it. But it's that permission piece. And I feel like so much of that was taken away from us in the educational system, which I know Joel's passionate about and you're passionate about. The educational system has trained us away from innovation, away from creativity, into becoming regurgitators of knowledge. We educate by pushing in, as opposed to the Latin educat, which is to draw out.
Yes, so right. And I think a permissive culture is the key ingredient. But once again, it starts with leaders.
Right.
Leaders have to create that. They have to always be delivering that on a daily basis so that I know it's not rhetoric, it's actionable. Because if it feels like rhetoric, I'm still not going to be the tall nail. I'm not going to put myself out there. But if I see that it's not rhetoric and it's deliverable and it's actionable and you really want us to do this, I'm in. But I love the fact that you said that it really it boils down to a permissive culture.
Yeah.
Fail forward, right? Skin your knee. We're allowed to do that here, right? We're not going to ridicule you, embarrass you, or shun you for mistakes. What's the learning in that? Because we're trying to get to mastery, and mastery is about stumbling, failing forward. All those things are important.
Yeah, when you talked about the metaphor of the box, there's basically, I had the stark comparison of what I've seen in boardrooms, and in the box, it's like there's this infinite build. It's like everybody has permission to think bigger and what could this be and imagine what it would be. In the boardroom, it's like a race to the stop. Like, who can be told no the fastest? Like we don't do that here, or it's not our thing, or that's a dumb idea. And yeah, the permission is gone in that culture when that happens. And then, next time, is anybody, even if they have a good idea, are they going to speak it? Because they don't know how that person's going to.
Then that is culture of fear.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And the challenge with this, though, gents, that I see in my work is that I think that oftentimes the leader doesn't actually know that he or she has built a culture of fear. They don't know that. And of course, they're in denial of it if you bring it up. So this is the challenge. So I want to ask you, Kev, how would you, if you walked into a place, because like I said, I know you work with huge companies, you walk into a place, the leader or leaders don't think it's a culture of fear. They would be in denial of this culture of fear. But for you or I or Joel or somebody else, it might be glaring. How would you get that across and get them to lubricate that and open it up a little bit?
So I think it's important for leaders to understand, to know your culture, you have to collect some data around it. So your willingness to do a cultural audit from time to time. So that would be one of the things I would lead in with, right? Is to identify an organization that could do that for us, collect data, be able to do that in a way that didn't feel like there was going to be repercussions for me sharing my feelings about it from a team member, right? So work with an organization. There's lots of organizations out there, companies that do those cultural audits in a really great way. So I would commission that work, have that done, sit down with the leadership team and say, look, numbers don't lie. Data doesn't lie. Here are the analytics. So you all might be faking it to yourselves, right? And think that we've got a robust culture and everything's amazing here. Well, look what your people are really saying. So they're walking on eggshells. They're afraid to raise their hand. They're afraid to share an idea, right? They don't want to get ridiculed or shunned or whatever. So guess what? People are playing small here. You think you have a thriving company and your numbers reflect that? Imagine if you actually created a permissive culture. Now you've got a high performing. You could actually raise your game. So a cultural audit would be one of the first things that I would do to be able to demonstrate to someone, let's look at some facts here, not just anecdotal. Let's look at some objective information. But also, I would take a temperature of the place, do some one-on-ones, do some group conversations, coming in as a neutral individual. My agenda is you. I'm not trying to be a something in your organization. People will be more open to share with me, knowing that I'm going to use it to elevate the culture, knowing that that's the agenda. So I think that would be a way to approach that for sure.
Yeah, I put forward that I really like the undercover boss model. And the reason for that is because you have two cultures. And the culture is the one you think you have and the one you actually have. And often they are vastly different, vastly different.
Come on, dude. That's some real talk. That's a hashtag. Cosign. I cosign that, Doug, for sure. That's some real talk.
It's not the same thing.
No.
Not at all. What is
Mom and dad aren't around. We're going to behave a certain way.
Exactly.
Mom and dad are on the premises.
Yeah. How old are you? I'm 14. Do you smoke? Is my mom here?
No. Is my wife listening to this?
Exactly. No, exactly. So give us an example of your high, low, your best and worst of experiences of bringing this into the corporate environment.
So let's say best experience. Well, basically just going into a already open and whatever, it's a creative organization, right? That's like hunting at the zoo, right? Like it's not hard, right? It's easy. They're already into it. They're like, give me more, give me more. They want to drink from the fire hose.
Yep.
Now let's look at a banking institution. Traditional, very, very storied in their mannerisms, behavior, the culture, the expectations of a leader as you ascend within the organization, buttoned up, all those things you said. And to be able to break through that, I had to share empirical research, objective information, all these other things that I knew would appeal to them, the science behind play. Now that I had them leaning forward and listening a bit more intently, then I said, you know what? We should play. Let's do an actual beta test right here of my ideas. You know what we're going to do? We're going to play Foursquare. We're going to play tag, or we're going to do this. We're going to do this, but we're going to do it from a scientific perspective. Now I do the cross-functional, move you into, hey, let's rename ourselves. So you're no longer director of, president of. What are you going to bring to your team? So now everybody gets to rename themselves. There's laughter, banter. The cacophony is amazing, right? And now they're in it, and they don't even realize that I've stripped away their former selves, and I'm starting to build this new thing, which is what I learned in the military, right? So there's a thing that they do in the military to you, right, is they want to decentralize you
Yes.
make you go through a crucible together. You come out at the other side transformed.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned. I've been with the give me more organizations, and I've been with the, well, you better be good, because we're spending X amount of time, we're allotting this to you. And I've learned that I have to approach it uniquely. It's not a blanket position or effort, but I love talking to the heathens of play. I want to bring them to the church of movement, right? And joy, right?
Those
are the ones I want, dude. Those are the ones I want. Those of you who come to church every Sunday, I already know you. You sitting in the front pews. I want the ones that are in the back reluctantly coming in. Those are the ones we need to convert.
Absolutely.
Those are the leaders that probably are in, these pillars of the industry that we really need to get them to lay their game.
Yeah, it's, all this ties very beautifully because, of course, because that's your whole philosophy. But, this idea, I mean, when we look at it, even if we go back to our very first question, about belonging, and it is our human nature to need to belong. We're tribal, but rather than belong, we trade belonging for fitting in. And there's a vast difference. If I fit in, I have to shave a little bit of me off here and there and squitch and turn and twist to get in the box so that I can fit in. Whereas belonging, I get to spread my wings and I get this room. There's always been room for me. It was waiting for me to arrive. That's different than fitting in. And in what you're saying with this, I just love about it. And it's one of the things that in my private work, when I work one-on-one with a client, and I say, you are going to love working with me and you're going to hate it. And if you don't hate it at some point, I've probably not done my job. If you love it all the way through, something is a bit off. And they go, what do you mean? I said, because we are going to go through an experience together, and it is going to break you down in a way that's not breaking you, the truth of who you are, but the mask and the image of who you are. It's going to break down. And at that point, you're going to go through an identity crisis, and you're going to be crying, and you're going to go, my life's in shit, and what's going on, and what is this bastard dove has done this to me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be the bad guy. And I'm willing to be that bad guy. But if you can keep going through that, number one, our bond will be through the roof. And number two, you will have a bond with everybody who you're bringing with you into that journey. All the people you lead, it's going to be so transformational for them because the bonding experience, and you know this, and this is why I'm bringing it up, the one of the things that I admired about high-level military training is there is a bonding experience where you feel like your life is in the hands of someone else. And not everybody can do that.
Dove, that's so beautifully articulated. When you have to surrender your life over to someone else, and dude, I know you got me. You got me.
Right.
And I believe you got me. When you surrender like that to someone and the person receives that, and reciprocates,
yes.
Dude, it's over. That's a wrap, right? Like, it's on. Like, it's sparks flying. I want to point out something. You keep bringing up belonging. I forgot to tell you, I did a 4th book. Just recently, a kid's book. It just released in October, and it's an amazing program. It's a kids series on really big topics for kids, but mine is on belonging. And I say, you will always belong no matter where you are, as long as you belong to yourself. As long as you belong to yourself, you'll belong anywhere you need to. I'll make sure that I'll share that details with you. But
absolutely.
But you said the most important piece about it, Dove. When we were in the military, especially when I was overseas, and that's all you had was that community, you really understood that, hey, if the shit goes down, dude, can I count on you?
Right.
And for someone to look you in the eye and say, dude, I got you.
Yeah.
And I got your family. Don't you worry. And you say the same thing back to them. So I look at it more as symbiotic than reciprocal.
Yes, I get it. Yep. It is. It's symbiosis that something greater is created out of the joining of two.
Come on now.
Yeah, that's it. Fantastic. Joel, you look like you had something you wanted to jump in with a moment ago, and I think maybe Kevin and I.
We've covered so much. I'm along for the ride as much as anything. I'm just sitting there going, I don't even know where that was. This has been awesome.
It just happened to me. It's happening to me.
I'm like,
Joel,
just
wait,
right now. Let's do this.
You're in the vortex, Joel. You're in the Dove and Casey vortex.
Joel's at the front of the room going, I believe.
Pass the plate. Pass the plate.
Exactly. He's running around the room with the plate.
Yes, he is. Brilliant.
Oh my God, that's funny. So we're already getting very close to the end of the show, Kevin. Of course, I love talking.
But you know, when we have our conversations, Dove, I do think there's a magical moment that happens within them where we actually forget that we're doing this program and we're just sharing and hoping that we're exhausting ourselves for our listeners. Well,
I mean, again, it's what you said. I believe that my shows are more than the show. I really believe my commitment is that they're a symbiotic response. That what I bring as the host and what you bring as the guest, it's not on you, the guest. It's not on me, the host. It's on us. It's on Joel as the co-host. It's on us to bring a symbiosis that gives the audience something more than they would have if it was just me, if it was just you, if it was just Joel, or even if it was the three of us. But there's this symbiotic response that is far greater, that is an expansion into their personal universe that allows their creativity and their playfulness to expand beyond the mask and the framework that they've lived in that has kept them fitting in, but instead gives them wings so they can actually belong.
Yes. And I think it goes through our generosity of spirit.
I fully agree. I think that's where it's that willingness to say, no matter what, I'm in. Yeah. Absolutely. Mate, I love our conversation. Always love our conversation. Before we finish up, and I'm going to ask you to tell our audience where they can find out more about you and your new book and your other books and speaking and all the other things that you do. But before we go to that, I want to ask you to share with our audience, people listening in, one piece of practical guidance you would like them, something they could go do in the next 24, 48 hours. So I think it's important for you to identify what gets you out of bed in the morning. Let's go back to your passion story, right? And passion story and those ideas around passion. So passion is what gets you up in the morning. So what gets you out of bed? What sparks you? What inspires you? And you can repeat that day after day after day. But to have the courage to tell someone who matters to you what you care about, your Miss Lane, your CEO. So to have the courage to share that with someone and to have that person hold me accountable, please. Create a contract with them. Check on me to see if I'm spewing rhetoric or if there's action behind this. So there's my offer and my challenge to our audience is to identify your passion, your purpose, your intention that gets you out of bed. Share that with someone and ask for them to be your accountability buddy and to hold you accountable for that and do some work on it. Don't talk about it, be about it. Yeah, I love that. I think that genuine creativity, I had this conversation with an amazing guy who's a very powerful and successful artist just last week, and we talked about the creativity takes courage. It takes courage. Once again, Dove with a mic drop moment. Creativity takes courage. It does. You got to be willing to skin your knees. And you got to be, but more than skin your knees, you got to be willing to have people say, you're an idiot. Yes. Or this is ugly, right? I mean, you know, I was an artist as a kid, and I looked at abstract and didn't get it. Oh, how about that? Ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous. Right? I didn't get it. And then I got it. And when I got it, it was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I didn't get it until I got it. But I had to have the courage to say I don't get it so that somebody could help me to shift my lens and go, oh. And I had to be willing to put that first drawing or that first painting or that first sculpture forward and have people go, this is crap, right? And it's all that courage because when you are vulnerable, you actually reveal your heart and your soul. And that's the place where you can get the most elevated, the most sent to the moon. You can explode into incredible things, and your entire universe opens up. Every cell and every fiber of your being, every neuron starts to fire together, and the whole universe comes to play inside of your own being. But it's also the moment where you can be crushed into the tiniest thing. And most of us, because we're so committed to fitting in, won't do that.
Yeah, terrified of that judgment, right? And so the courage is the key piece, right? For your willingness, if I'm gonna fly my freak flag, then I'm gonna have the courage to do that, and I'm gonna show up on the regular that way. It's not gonna be sometimey. Yeah. I'm going to be this, right? And I'm gonna wrap my arms around that persona, and I'm gonna show up consistently that way.
Yeah. When I confronted our common friend, yes, and I said, have you always been a freak? And he was kind of like upset about it. And now he actually really likes it. He likes freak because it's a compliment.
It is a compliment, right? It is a compliment.
Call me normal, right? I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. Oh, that would be, now we going to fight. We gonna have a scuffle. How dare you insult me that way?
Yeah. Joel, do you have the last question you want to ask?
Yeah, actually, I want to speak on the advice you gave and how, like, we have this purpose or these passions, and we keep them so private to ourselves that we forget them. It's so easy to get lost in the mix. We don't, just to take to daily remind yourself at least twice, because it's the time you remembered and the time you told somebody. That's a game changer. I mean, that's probably 600 times more than they would do in any given year if they didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, and my grandmother would always say, speak it out, do something, make it real. Yeah. Right. So you have to speak it out, because we keep our passions locked up inside. Yeah. Because judgment, lack of courage. But if you speak it out, you have no idea who might rally around that idea and assist you in advancing it. Yeah. And so that takes the courage piece. But once you put it out there, now I've got also accountability, because somebody's going to say, hey, Joel, what's going on with that idea? Right. And so that's the fear too. Right. Yeah. It's putting it out there. But if you put it out there, there's magic and possibilities. And I think that's what, Dub, you're talking about, where the sparks, where you're lit up, where all these potential things could happen because you put it out there.
Yeah. Well, you got the other side. I mean, as leaders, if you're looking at it from that angle, there's the other side of that where you can, like, as Dov was saying, it could be forced into your smallest at the same point. You open yourself up. Either one is possible. Leaders have to go through that crap, but the forces that want to push you down and say, no, the other person on the other side of this that needs it, I'm going to be there for them. And I mean, it's clear you guys like show up in that in so many ways. And it was just awesome to be part of this conversation, but to see that repeated and so obvious.
And that's that threshold, right? That's that willingness to cross that threshold from being a leader in title and be a leader in being.
Yeah, absolutely. Kev, this has rocked, mate. It's been a superstar conversation. I am so grateful to you for being here. I'm so grateful to you, Joel, for being with us. Joel, just so people understand, please tell our audience where they can find out more about you, because, we may have dominated the conversation, Kev and I, a little bit.
Just no worries. I got in there when I got to get in there. When I had to be in there, I was in there.
He got like a personal session. He got his own private session, right? Yeah. First one's free, Joel.
We got the heroin for your mind.
Yes.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Joel Bauer Official. That's probably the cleanest place to find me, or don'tdieofdumb.com, and check out all the stuff we're doing. So.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks for being here with us. Kev, please tell our audience where they can find out more about you, your books, your speaking, and all the wonderful resources that you have.
So my social is just KC Katalyst with a K. So KC Katalyst. So that's all my social. And then akidsbookabout.com, is where you'll find my book on belonging, but amazing other titles about really important topics to have conversations with our next generation of leaders, makers, doers, and dreamers.
Fantastic, mate. I have loved our conversation. I'm sincerely grateful to you for taking the time out, Kev. I know you're a busy lad. I want to thank you, Joel, for being with us. It is always, always, always an honor to have a conversation with either of you gents. I know that I'm going to be having another conversation with Joel in just a few days at the Dragon's Lair Mastermind.
Whether you like it or not, Dove, it's coming.
Exactly, it's coming. And for you, dear listener, thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, you can hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any past episodes by going on to either our LinkedIn or Facebook groups. Remember, it's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. If you're ready to develop your leadership and loyalty in your organization, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com. If you want to find out more about hiring me, Dov Barron, as a speaker, strategist for your organization, then go to fullmontyleadership.com/consulting or fullmontyleadership.com/speaking. The Full Monty Leadership, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. Full Monty Leadership, because you can't outsource authenticity. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how play can actually open up your creativity and make you a higher performing individual, leader, and team. I'm Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.